Dr. Eli Vance tightened the last bolt on the inspection panel before letting out a sigh. The station was quiet. Too quiet for a place that housed 12 species and ran nonstop commerce between stars. He wiped his forehead, even though Elian 9's atmosphere was perfectly climate-controlled. Old Earth habits died hard. Then came the alert, 3 short bursts in rapid succession, not the kind that screamed catastrophe, but enough to pull his attention. The screen blinked with a localized emergency from the Urani sector. No fire, no decompression, no system failure. Just a garbled distress signal. One phrase managed to come through the auto-translator before the system stalled. "It's stuck. Take it off, please." Odd. The Urani weren't exactly known for emergencies, and definitely not for requests. He keyed into the system. No override from Central. Typical. The security team marked it non-priority and left it in the queue. He sighed again, grabbed his toolkit, and walked toward the residential wing, wondering if someone had gotten stuck in a smart fabric hammock again. The corridor to the Urani quarters glowed with faint blue light. Their section was more serene than sterile, designed like a crystal cave, humming quietly with embedded bioreactor walls. At door 17B, the panel blinked red. He knocked once. No answer. Protocols were fuzzy. Urani privacy custom could be aggressively enforced, but he overrode the lock and stepped inside. The smell hit first, ozone and something sharper like melting resin. Then came the sound, a low gas that didn't quite belong to pain or panic, but hovered between. He turned the corner and froze. There on the floor was a Urani female, tall, luminescent skin fracture with glowing lines, and an ornate biosuit wrapped tightly around her form. It pulsed erratically, tendrils retracting and snapping back as it confused. Her limbs trembled under its grip, and her face, alien yet unmistakably pained, lifted toward him. "You are human," she said, her voice fractured through a flickering translation node. "Dr. Eli Vance," he said calmly, keeping his voice steady. "You sent an emergency signal." "Yes." A beat of hesitation. "It is fused. Malfunctioned. Removal unsuccessful. Pain threshold reached." Eli stepped closer, watching the way the suit constricted her movement. It wasn't made of any material he recognized, but it pulsed like it was alive. Biotech, centuries beyond human engineering. But it was clearly failing. He knelt beside her, slowly reaching for her shoulder. "May I?" he asked. She hesitated. Her pride warred visibly with her agony. Then she nodded once, eyes fluttering. He touched the surface of the suit, warm, almost too warm. The tendrils twitched in response to him. He scanned quickly with his handheld. The data made no sense. Power loops spiking, neural interfaces overcharged, safety protocols ignored. The suit wasn't just malfunctioning. It was eating itself alive, and her with it. "I'm not a medic," he said honestly, "but I can try to help." "Any assistance," she started, faltered, then said, "is disgraceful, but required." He studied the neural filament running along her side and followed it to the back, where a panel flickered with fractured energy, a control node but sealed. The Urandi used energy imprint locks, biometric and intention-driven. His tools were not designed for this, but that never stopped him before. He pulled out a portable diagnostic blade and inserted it under the filament. The suit reacted, tightening, twisting. She winced, her breath hitching. He paused. "This'll get worse before it gets better," he said softly. "But I think I can reroute the power overload. Might need to pop a few panels." "Do what you must," she said between clenched teeth. He laid out the basics. Insulated pliers, a thermal cutter, a small pulse driver. Primitive compared to Urani tech, but he'd used these to repair fusion seals in deep orbit. That suit wasn't more temperamental than a half-century-old coolant line, no matter how elegant it looked. As he worked, the suit began to react less violently. His cutter disrupted the nearest filament loop, giving him a window. He leveraged a tiny plate open with a dental hook and exposed the internal core. Wires, or something like wires, glowed with angry orange. The loop needed a manual disruption. He took out his micro drill, the bit whirring faintly. She stared at it, horrified. "You're going to drill it?" she asked. just enough to short out the overload relay. It's either this, or we wait for it to fully collapse. And from the readings, you don't have long. She nodded reluctantly. The drill pierced a node, and sparks arced out. The room lit in a strobe of white and red. She screamed, not out of fear, but the sheer shock of sudden decompression as part of the suit disengaged. One section collapsed into dust-like particles and sloughed away from her arm. She gasped in relief. It released. He knelt beside her again. I think I bought us some time. The rest of it is still active, but at least now I know what I'm dealing with. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. She turned to look at him, genuinely surprised. Your methods are unsanctioned, chaotic, yet they succeeded. We call it improvising, Eli said, smiling faintly. When the tools don't match the job, we make new ones. She blinked. Your species does this often? All the time. We sent people to our moon with duct tape and calculators. We survived on Earth by fixing what broke before it killed us. He began recalibrating his tools. More sections remained, more nodes pulsing with erratic energy, but she let her guard down, just enough. Her voice, now steadier, said, I was told humans were crude, reckless. He looked up, and now... She didn't answer immediately. Then, still crude, but capable. He smirked, standing. I'll take it. As he adjusted the cutter for the next segment, she leaned back, exhaling a faint shimmering breath. She had trusted him, a stranger from a race no one took seriously. And for the first time, she didn't feel fear from pain, only curiosity and hope. Eli adjusted the thermal cutter, angling it to avoid the reactive seam pulsing along Sierralin's lower shoulder. The tendrils that were tighter, coiling with a mind of their own, twitching whenever he moved. He'd seen smart tech before, human-made combat suits that anticipated injury, even corrected posture. But this wasn't tech. It was something more like a parasite with protocol. She lay still, rigid with control, her breath slow and measured. The Urani were trained to meditate through pain, but even that had limits. He could see her fingers twitch involuntarily, betraying just how close to collapse she really was. This part's tricky, he murmured. If I cut too shallow, the loop resists. Too deep, and I fry a neural node. She said nothing, but her eyes remained locked on him. Eli reached for a hand stabilizer and placed it around the cutter. He secured it, then hovered the tool just over the energy cluster. The field shimmered. He had only one chance. The cutter hissed as it touched the node, slicing through with a clean, vibrating hum. A flare of violet energy burst upward, searing past his shoulder. It singed part of his sleeve and burned the air. He didn't flinch. A second segment of the suit cracked and folded away like dying petals. Her arm moved freely now, but her body jolted with a backlash. She sucked in a breath, sharp and uncontrolled. Still with me? Eli asked, already scanning the next node. Yes, she whispered, barely audible. He gave her a crooked smile. Then let's keep going. Suddenly, the suit spasmed. The remaining tendrils writhed and tightened like snakes. Eli's scanner beeped wildly. The biosuit wasn't just malfunctioning. It had recognized intrusion. Its adaptive system was reacting defensively. Tendrils clamped around her ribcage, surging electricity through its connections. Sierralin gasped in pain. Her back arched, her muscles locking. Eli dropped the scanner and grabbed a power injector, stabbing it between two external coils. The surge shorted the response, and the suit eased, if only slightly. She collapsed back, sweat with a Urani equivalent, gleaming on her forehead. You okay? He asked again. Her response came delayed. It adapts, defends itself. Removal will trigger more. Eli stared at the suit. Its intelligence was beyond anything humanity had encountered, but that was its flaw too. It followed patterns. Predictable if you knew how to spot them. Eli didn't need advanced protocols or AI matrices. What he had was better instinct and patience. He sat beside her, setting the cutter down. You ever hear about Earth's Apollo 13 mission? She shook her head weakly. Ship broke down halfway to the moon. Oxygen low, power failing, systems collapsing. They fixed everything with duct tape, plastic bags and a cardboard manual. Her brow furrowed slightly. "You survived this?" "Barely," he said, "but they brought everyone home. Not because of superior tech, but because they refused to let the situation win." Sierra stared at him, her breathing rough but steadier. "Your people are strange. We get that a lot." She blinked slowly. "And stubborn. Definitely that too." He reconnected the scanner and found a pattern. Power spikes moving in waves, centralized around a core embedded in her lower back. The other nodes were responding defensively to any disruption around that core. It was the brain of the biosuit, and it was failing. He turned back to her. "There's a central node near your spine. That's where this thing's logic comes from. If I shut it down, everything else might disengage. But if I mess it up..." "I am aware," she said, voice firmer now. "Risk neural damage. Death. Or worse." "Worst case scenario," Eli said, trying to sound lighter than he felt, "you wake up with a cybernetic tail." That almost earned a smile. He adjusted the scanner to filter background energy and isolated the core pattern. It pulsed erratically, mimicking a heartbeat gone mad. The moment he touched it, he knew the feedback would be explosive. He pulled out a voltage sink, an ancient but reliable piece of gear from the Mars Terraforming Initiative. It wasn't pretty, but it absorbed spikes like nothing else. He pressed it gently against the node cluster and braced. "I'm going to need you very still," he said. "I am Urani," she replied. "Right. Stone still then." The moment he made contact, the suit convulsed. Sierra groaned, biting down on a cloth he offered her. Eli twisted the injector, redirecting the feedback into the voltage sink. The sink pulsed red, then blackened. The node gave way. A sound like cracking ice filled the room as the central tendrils recoiled violently. A third of the suit collapsed instantly. Her body went limp. "Core's offline," he said, heart pounding. Sierra didn't respond. Her vitals, visible now that part of the suit had disengaged, were low but stable. He leaned back, exhaling for the first time in minutes. Then he heard her voice. "You risked yourself. For me." He shrugged, wincing slightly as his arm throbbed from the electric kickback. "Well, I didn't want to explain to your people why their ambassador melted on the floor." "You jest," she said, but her voice was softer now. "But why? You gained nothing." Eli sat down beside her, watching the last active nodes flicker weakly. "We don't always help people because there's something in it for us. Sometimes we do it just because someone's hurting. Doesn't matter if they're human or not." Her eyes met his. "Among my people, pain is hidden, masked. To endure is to isolate. That's the difference, I think," Eli said. "Humans suffer together. Not always well, but together." She didn't answer, but her hand, unbound now, reached out and rested on his. And in that quiet moment, two species, two lives utterly different, shared something more powerful than technology: understanding. Eli checked the remaining segments of the suit. 2 nodes left. One wrapped around her left thigh, the other embedded at the base of her neck. Both were still pulsing with energy, but the core deactivation had destabilized them. He could feel the suit weakening. It wasn't dying quietly. It was planning something. Sierra shifted slightly, wincing as she tried to sit up. He held her back gently. "Easy. You've been under a lot of stress." Her voice had lost some of its sharpness. "I feel hollow." "That's the feedback," Eli said. "You've had a neural load running through you for hours. Once this thing's off, you'll feel like you went 12 rounds with a black hole." Her gaze lingered on him. "You act as though you're not afraid." "Oh, I am," he said with a dry laugh. "I just learned to hide it better than most." The scanner beeped. The thigh node had begun rerouting energy to the neck, accelerating a process he didn't fully understand. He traced the lines again, noting the way the pulses formed a repeating pattern. He sat up straighter. "It's trying to detonate itself." Her body stiffened. "You are certain?" "Not a big explosion. Localized neural overload. Last defense mechanism. If I remove one node, the other triggers a surge. Takes you with it." Sierra closed her eyes. "Fail-safe protocol. I was warned never to wear this model unsupervised. It was a test design." You're saying you volunteered to wear experimental tech with lethal countermeasures? It was required. My rank demanded demonstration of loyalty. I did not anticipate malfunction. Eli leaned back, frustrated. Of course. Leave it to an advanced species to weaponize a fashion statement. Siraelen tilted her head. You joke again. Why? Because if I don't, I'll scream, he said. We've got two options. Shut down both nodes at the exact same time, or trick them into thinking they're still connected when they're not. She blinked slowly. Can this be done? He looked down at his kit. Manual tools, a half-fried voltage sink, a broken stabilizer. Nothing built for this. But that wasn't the point. The suit ran on logic. Patterns. Signals. Human creativity didn't follow rules. That was the key. It can, he said finally, but I'll need your help. Tell me. He handed her a resonance mirror from his kit, normally used to sync repair tools during vibration-sensitive work. It reflected low-energy pulses and bounced them along preset rhythms. This will fool one of the nodes into thinking it's still receiving feedback. You'll have to press it against your thigh the moment I sever connection. Her hand trembled as she took it. What if I am late? You won't be, Eli said. They stared at each other for a long moment. No speeches. No promises. Just trust. He moved toward the base of her neck, gently parting the final strands of suit. Her skin there shimmered with residual energy, and the node sat like a dark gemstone, pulsing faster now, sensing the end. He placed his blade over the edge. On 3. She nodded. 1, 2. He severed both connections in a single, swift movement. The room exploded with white light. Pain surged through her body. Her scream pierced the silence, not from fear, but from a force of release. Eli shielded his eyes as both nodes flared, their feedback circuits shorted out by the fake loop and his pulse redirector. Sparks flew. The room dimmed. And then, silence. The suit was gone. All that remained were faint traces of energy on her skin, like ghostly veins vanishing into nothing. Siraelen collapsed forward, barely breathing. Eli caught her, lowering her gently. You did it, she whispered, her voice hoarse. No, he said. We did. He checked her vitals again, irregular, but improving. The body had a strange resilience when it wasn't busy fighting itself. He wrapped her in a thermal sheet and leaned against the wall, heart racing. Siraelen's eyes remained closed, but she spoke. You saved my life, at risk to your own. Guess we're even now. No, you owe nothing, yet you gave everything. Eli chuckled. We call it compassion. She was quiet for a long time. Then, your people they endure by choice. He looked at her, puzzled. What do you mean? Urani evolved through structure, through control. Every crisis is calculated, neutralized by protocol. But you, humans, you bend, you break, you improvise, and you survive. Not always gracefully, he admitted. But yeah, that's kind of our thing. I was taught to see humans as inferior, emotionally volatile, impulsive. But in this moment, her voice trailed off. You are more than I was told. Guess your teachers never got trapped in a bio-suit with us, Eli said with a tired grin. She opened her eyes fully now. There was something new there, not just relief, but revelation, as if she had looked at the stars her whole life, and only now realized someone else had been staring back. Perhaps we misjudged your species, she said. Eli helped her sit up. If it's any consolation, we misjudge ourselves half the time. She tilted her head slightly. There's a strength in that, in knowing what you are and still choosing to fight. Story of humanity, he said. And now your story, too. She sat still for a moment, absorbing that. Then, with deliberate motion, she extended her hand, not as a formality, but as an equal. He took it. The moment was quiet, but in that silence, something shifted. A bridge, built not with treaties or tech, but with a human hand reaching into the unknown and refusing to let go. The room remained dim, flickered with the afterglow of drained energy conduits and dying biosuit residue. Siraelen leaned against the console now, draped in the emergency blanket Eli had given her. Her breathing had steadied, though her skin still shimmered faintly with leftover neural residue. She looked calm, focused, different. Eli stood a few feet away, repacking his tools with methodical precision. Not to keep busy. He needed to think. He had just disabled a living suit designed by an alien empire, with little more than scavenged tools, instinct, and a few jokes. The adrenaline had faded, but the enormity remained. "I will need to file a report," Sir Alan said suddenly. "My superiors will demand explanation for failure of the prototype, and for my choices." Eli turned. "Think they'll believe the part where a human engineer outsmarted a living defense system with spare parts and a pulse mirror?" Her expression shifted. "They will believe what I tell them." He studied her face. "And what will you tell them?" She was quiet. Then, with slow certainty, she answered that I met a species without calculation, one that values life over advantage, that adapts not just biologically, but morally, that risks everything for the sake of another. "You make us sound like saints," Eli said, amused. "You are not saints," she said. "You are something rarer, willing." That word hung in the air like a verdict. He sat down beside her. The station outside the chamber still hummed faintly, broadcasting silence across the void. No alarms, no alerts. The world hadn't noticed what had happened here, but something had changed. "You know," he said, "when I joined this diplomatic crew, I thought I'd be fixing coffee machines and arguing over water rations, not peeling alien armor off a warrior diplomat." She smiled faintly. "I thought I would demonstrate control and impress my superiors. Instead, I screamed in front of a human and was saved by one." "Funny how life works out," Eli said. There was a pause before she asked, "What will you report?" He considered. "That I disobeyed a dozen safety protocols, used restricted tech, and broke at least 3 interstellar regulations." She tilted her head. "You're not worried?" He shrugged. "Humans have a long history of doing the wrong thing for the right reason." Sir Alan considered that. "Then, perhaps your chaos is merit." He raised an eyebrow. "That's probably the nicest thing anyone said about Earth in years." She laughed quietly, a low, resonant sound, strange but beautiful. Not mechanical, not calculated, just real. Then the station lights flickered to full strength. Communications lines rebooted. Emergency lockdown disengaged. They were back online. A voice crackled over the intercom. "Ambassador Sir Alan, this is command. Are you secure? Sensors show energy discharge and biosu anomalies." She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes drifted to Eli. Then, with absolute clarity, she responded, "I am secure. There was a malfunction. It has been resolved." There was a pause and confirm identity of technician present. Eli raised a brow, but she responded for him. "Technician Eli Renan, civilian class engineer. He remained when others fled. He neutralized the biosuit's threat and ensured my survival. Marked this intervention as critical and honorable." Eli blinked. "Wow. Didn't expect a medal from the Galactic elite. Considered overdue," she said softly. The transmission ended. The room was quiet again, save for the low thrum of power being restored. Sir Alan stood slowly, gathering what remained of her dignity and control. But something had changed. Her movements weren't robotic now. They were deliberate. Human, almost. "You know," she said, turning to him, "our alliance with humanity has always been tentative. Politically necessary, but not emotionally trusted." Eli nodded. "Yeah, I picked up on that when they assigned me a closet to sleep in. After today," she said, stepping closer, "I will argue differently. Not for alliance, but for kinship." Eli blinked. "Big word." "Big truth," she replied. He scratched the back of his neck. "Well, I'll take kinship over closet space." She laughed again. Then, after a beat, she added, "When I first wore the suit, I believed it made me strong, infallible. That control was a path to survival. And now," she held his gaze, "now I believe vulnerability is not weakness. It is shared strength. Your species thrives because it connects. It chooses empathy even in chaos. That is power." He looked down for a second, then back at her. "You sure you weren't human in a past life?" "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe we all are, a little, if we dare." There was a finality in that moment. Not in the sense of something ending, but something beginning. A spark. He stood and offered his hand, not out of politeness, out of respect. She took it. As the door hissed open and the light from the corridor spilled in, they walked out side by side, not as ambassador and technician, not as alien human, but as two beings who had seen each other unmasked. Past fear, past species, past command. There was a universe waiting, and something new had been written in its margins, not in data or treaties, but in choice, in connection, in humanity. And for once, humanity didn't just survive the story. It defined it.